The movie starts with Secret Service agent Mike Banning playfully sparring with President Benjamin Asher, showing their close friendship. At Camp David, the president's family is getting ready for a charity event. Mike helps Margaret pick earrings and gives Connor advice about being a good agent. On their way to the fundraiser, heavy snow disrupts their journey. President Asher and Margaret are in the lead limousine, while Connor rides with Mike in an SUV behind them. A big branch hits the presidential car, causing a series of accidents. One of the Secret Service SUVs falls into icy water, and the president's limousine hangs dangerously close to the edge. Mike and his team quickly try to stabilize the limo and save the president and Margaret. Despite their efforts, Margaret is trapped as the car teeters. Mike manages to save the president, but he can't free Margaret. The limo falls, and Connor arrives, crying out in grief for his mother. 18 months later, Mike is still haunted by the past. His wife, Leah, struggles to talk to him as he battles his inner demons. Trying to reconnect, Mike suggests a movie night after work. Now working at the U.S. Treasury, he is constantly reminded of the Camp David tragedy. In a meeting with Secret Service Director Lynn Jacobs, Mike's guilt surfaces, but Lynn comforts him, saying he made the best decisions during the crisis. President Asher, though supportive, avoids Mike to escape the painful memories. President Asher talks with Connor about their upcoming trip to Camp David, but Connor wishes for a beach vacation. To cheer him up, the president suggests getting ice cream, but duty calls as he's needed for a crucial meeting about rising tensions with North Korea. Key figures like Secretary of Defense Ruth McMillan and Vice President Charles Rodriguez are involved. Prime Minister Lee and his Chief Security Officer, Kong Yanuk, arrive at the White House for urgent talks on the issue. At the same time, a major security breach happens nearby with a large AC-130 gunship over North Virginia. American fighter jets try to intercept it, giving warnings, but the gunship fires back, taking down the jets. President Asher quickly ends the meeting and leads his guests to the POC, changing the usual protocol because of the immediate danger. In response to the aerial threat, the military quickly springs into action. Fighter jets take off, soldiers get ready, and SAM turrets prepare to defend. Amidst the chaos, Mike is at his desk, seemingly unaware, until he realizes the danger. The gunship fires bullets onto the streets, causing civilians to panic. Driven by instinct, Mike rushes toward the danger. Despite the anti-aircraft turrets firing missiles, the gunship's defenses easily deflect them. Top officials seek refuge in the POC while Mike navigates through the chaos, guiding civilians to safety and urging them to take cover. The gunship then targets the White House, killing the rooftop guards. Just when things seem hopeless, a fighter jet launches a missile that hits the gunship, causing it to crash into the Washington Monument. The collapse of the monument crushes tourists below, adding to the tragedy. In the bunker, President Asher's main concern is his son Connor's safety. He gives urgent orders to ensure Connor's well-being. As the gunship is destroyed, Mike looks around at the damage, but then hears explosions nearby. He sees bombers approaching and prepares for the next attack on the White House defenses. Mike manages to stop one threat, but another attacker succeeds. A new wave of terror begins as Korean insurgents use smoke grenades to cover their assault. They fire RPGs, breaking through the White House gates. A fierce gun battle erupts between the attackers and the Secret Service, with many casualties on both sides. Mike jumps into the fight as two large trucks approach ominously. Meanwhile, in the Pentagon's crisis room, Lynn holds a meeting with Raymond Rowe, General CLE, and other high-ranking officials. They get a quick briefing on the crisis at the White House. Back at the White House, the Secret Service is overwhelmed, with many agents killed. Mike's sharpshooting skills are crucial as military reinforcements arrive. At the same time, a betrayal happens in the bunker. Gunshots ring out as Kong, with his team and an unexpected ally, former Secret Service agent Dave Forbes, kills the bunker's guards. President Asher and his associates are held at gunpoint, their safe place now a dangerous trap. Outside, Mike and the remaining guards try to regroup. One of the approaching trucks reveals a large machine gun, mowing down soldiers. An RPG blast hits the White House's main entrance, and Mike sees his comrades fall. As the perimeter defenses fall, Mike infiltrates the White House, seeking safety amidst the chaos. The attack continues as the second truck unloads crates full of weapons, strengthening the terrorist position inside the iconic building. Led by their technical expert, Lim, the terrorists quickly disable all external communications and controls within the White House. Despite the grim situation, defenders in the White House, led by Roma, launch a desperate counterattack against the invaders now controlling the control room. Amidst the gunfire, Roma declares, "Olympus has fallen," acknowledging the capture of the White House before he falls in battle. With the White House under siege, reinforcements gather to reclaim this symbol of American authority. Surrounding the historic building, they plan their response. In the Pentagon's command center, tension rises as Kong establishes a video link, showing the ruthless execution of Prime Minister Lee. Kong issues a clear ultimatum: surrender or face more bloodshed. President Asher's refusal to Dave only intensifies the threat, leading to another tragic loss, underscoring Kang's resolve. Navigating the dangerous halls of the White House, Mike finds Agent Roma's body. Determined, he heads to the control room, silently taking out a guard and discovering a photograph of Connor in the man's possession. Using the control room systems, Mike prevents the terrorists from further access, but the situation is still dire. Kong, cold and determined, demands access to classified files, while criticizing America's past actions in the Korean conflict. Speaking in Korean, he orders his men to find Connor, leaving the president helpless. At the Pentagon, Vice President Trumbull becomes the acting U.S. president amidst the escalating crisis. Meanwhile, inside the White House, Mike makes his way to the Oval Office and communicates with Lynn at the Pentagon. Despite some doubts, Lynn trusts Mike's integrity. Their conversation is interrupted by a tense confrontation between Mike and an intruder. Using a Lincoln statue, Mike overcomes one of his toughest challenges and emerges victorious. Kong contacts the Pentagon, demanding the withdrawal of the 7th Fleet and American troops from the demilitarized zone. He threatens severe consequences if his demands are not met. The officials at the Pentagon are in a difficult position, struggling with the weight of their decision. Vice President Trumbull suggests contacting international allies to seek a diplomatic solution. In the bunker, tension rises as Kong uses a knife to force Admiral Honig to give up the series code. Under President Asher's worried gaze, Honig reluctantly gives the code, causing alarms to go off at the Pentagon. In the White House, Mike sends a photo of an assassin's tattoo to the Pentagon, asking for information. Vice President Trumbull tells him that the code could disarm the nation's nuclear defenses and that only the president can override it from the bunker's computer. They realize Kong wants to use Connor to manipulate President Asher. Mike is tasked with finding and protecting Connor. As Kong watches Mike through surveillance, he orders immediate action against him and has Dave investigate Mike's background. Mike finds Connor hiding in a secret room in Lincoln's bedroom. He quickly evacuates him just as more terrorists enter, firing their guns. To calm Connor, Mike assures him of his father's safety and informs the Pentagon of their progress through a ventilation shaft. The military prepares to send a team to help them. Mike stops a soldier who sees their escape route and guides 2 troops with sniper support to the shaft. After rescuing Connor, Mike receives praise from Vice President Trumbull. Mike captures 2 assailants and interrogates them for vital information. At first, they resist, but they eventually reveal important details under pressure. Mike learns that Kang's real name is Kong Yanik, leader of the dangerous paramilitary group KUF, and the most wanted terrorist with no known image. They also discover that Kong's desire for revenge is personal, as his mother was killed by an American landmine. Inside the White House, explosives are found on the walls, their purpose unknown. Kong contacts Mike through an intercom, leading to a tense conversation. Mike assures Kong that Connor is safe and vows to stop his plans. Kong tries to unsettle Mike by mentioning his wife. President Asher listens as Kong turns his attention to Ruth, demanding another Cerberus code. Despite Ruth's strong resolve, President Asher, knowing the stakes, forces her to give up the code, succumbing to Kong's ruthless tactics. When the second Cerberus code is activated, alarms blare throughout the Pentagon. Tension rises as Mike confronts Dave, realizing something is wrong when Dave accidentally mentions Kong by name, a detail he shouldn't know. This slip makes Mike suspicious. Their confrontation turns violent, with knives flashing and fists flying. Although Dave is skilled, Mike overpowers and disarms him. Injured and cornered, Dave admits his betrayal, saying he felt he had lost his purpose. Mike takes advantage of this and forces Dave to deceive Kong, making him believe that Mike is dead. After the message is sent, Mike finishes Dave, ending his treachery. Meanwhile, Vice President Trumbull tells Mike that their options are running out and that SEAL teams are being sent in. As multiple units head towards Washington, Kang's hacker quickly spots them. Using empty boxes, Mike sends important information to General CLE, revealing that the enemy has advanced Hydra 6 weaponry. Despite the risk, CLE orders the mission to continue. Mike manages to take out 3 enemies controlling the weapons but gets pinned down, unable to stop the activation. Tragically, the Hydra 6 shoots down a helicopter and kills more teams with rapid fire. After defeating the last enemy, Mike races to the rooftop with an RPG. With a well-aimed shot, he destroys the Hydra 6 just as it downs the final chopper, causing a huge explosion that damages the White House. Kang contacts the Pentagon, attacking Vice President Rodriguez. He demands the recall of the 7th Fleet and plans to escape by helicopter at dawn. Vice President Trumbull talks to Mike, planning to recall the fleet, but Mike warns against it, leading to a tense standoff. With a deadline approaching, Mike gets motivation from his wife and then makes a bold call to Kang, giving a stern ultimatum and ending negotiations. Amidst media coverage, Ruth cautiously steps into view, prompting Kang to react aggressively. Mike steps in, distracting Kang and allowing Ruth to escape. In the following fight, Mike eliminates 3 enemies one by one. Vice President Trumbull acknowledges Mike's efforts but orders a retreat, a decision that is broadcast widely. Undeterred, Kang disguises the hostages and his team, preparing to leave the bunker. As they board the helicopter, approaching troops hesitate to fire, afraid of hitting the president, increasing the tension. As the helicopter lifts off, it suddenly explodes in midair, crashing to the ground. The Pentagon is shocked, thinking President Asher and everyone aboard has died. Mike hears the news but remains doubtful, knowing Kang's love for elaborate plans. He is right. It was a trick. Kang and his team secretly keep President Asher in the bunker. They finish hacking the Cerberus code, revealing Kang's terrible plan to set off all nuclear weapons and destroy the United States. The Pentagon learns about the coming disaster and starts a 5-minute countdown before the nuclear detonation. Kang leaves the bunker through the White House tunnels. Mike is waiting and quickly shoots 3 enemies as President Asher joins the fight but gets shot. A fierce battle follows between Mike and Kang, who fights with 2 knives. Despite Kang's taunts and skill, Mike finally wins and defeats him. Mike rushes into the bunker and tells the Pentagon that President Asher is alive. With only seconds left, Lynn, Vice President Trumbull, and CLE give Mike the deactivation code. Just in time, Mike stops the detonation, disables Cerberus, and prevents the disaster. President Asher is reunited with Connor and Leah with Mike, bringing a sense of relief. President Asher speaks to the nation, honoring the fallen and encouraging everyone to overcome fear. After his speech, he shakes Mike's hand, showing gratitude and redemption. Mike stands tall, celebrating his victory. The scene shifts to Punjab, Pakistan, where a joyful wedding is taking place. Cameron visits his father's home for an important talk. His father, Amir Barkawi, is both respected and feared, known for his vast criminal empire. G7 intelligence reveals that Amir is a notorious arms dealer and terrorist. They quickly authorize a U.S. Air Force drone strike, tragically timed during Amir's daughter's wedding, causing the loss of many innocent lives. 2 years later, Mike is jogging with President Asher, discussing political matters. When Mike gets home, his wife eagerly awaits the birth of their child. Mike, a dedicated Secret Service member, struggles with the idea of leaving his job for his family and even drafts a resignation email. Before he can decide, President Asher gets a call about the sudden death of James Wilson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, which deeply affects him. In London, top security agencies prepare for the funeral of the late Prime Minister, ensuring the safety of the gathering of world leaders. Back in Washington, Mike resumes his duties and meets with Lynn. Together, they advise the president on the risks of attending the funeral. Despite the dangers, President Asher insists on going, stressing the importance of his presence. Mike reassures his wife that after this mission, he will focus on their family. As Mike and President Asher leave for London, Lynn puts Mike in charge of the international security detail, emphasizing the need for a flawless operation. In London, the head of security briefs his team on the latest updates, reminding them of their critical role in protecting the world's most important leaders. Arriving at Stansted Airport earlier than expected surprises John, the security chief. Mike reassures him, pointing out that keeping the president's movements discreet is safer. London turns into a fortress with snipers, helicopters, and a heavy police presence as global leaders arrive. President Asher is warmly welcomed by the dignitaries. In a shocking twist, a man disguised as a police officer secretly attaches a bomb to the Canadian Prime Minister's car. The explosion causes widespread destruction. At the same time, people dressed as the King's Guard start shooting, killing the German Chancellor and innocent bystanders. Terrorists have infiltrated the ranks, pretending to be Metropolitan Police officers. As President Asher nears the cathedral, a group of mercenaries appears, causing chaos. Car explosions rock the streets, and the cathedral's entrance is quickly blocked, trapping the president outside. Mike springs into action, taking down several attackers before hiding behind an SUV and continuing to fight back. The attack intensifies, but Mike's quick thinking neutralizes the threats. Suddenly, two ambulances speed onto a bridge and explode. The blasts damage the bridge, causing it to break and nearly collapse. Amid the chaos, the Japanese official dies. Inside a chapel, the Italian Prime Minister is killed by a loud explosion, and the French president's boat is destroyed by fire on the water. A car speeds to pick up Ben and Mike, and they jump in, racing away from the chaos. Bullets rain down, but their driver skillfully maneuvers and takes out an enemy vehicle. Soon, they are chased by motorbikes. In a shocking turn, one biker breaks through the bulletproof glass, allowing the enemies to shoot and wound the driver. Mike takes the wheel, expertly evading and defeating several pursuers. More bikers appear, but Mike's skilled driving keeps them at bay, allowing them to move forward. After getting rid of their foes, they reach a waiting helicopter and board it, flying to safety. The scene shifts to a news broadcast, where a reporter solemnly announces the death toll from the London attacks. 5 world leaders, including presidents and prime ministers, have tragically died. The focus then shifts to Amir, the mastermind behind these attacks, who is still alive and talking to his son. Confidently, the son assures his father that everything is going according to plan. He cuts the power supply, plunging the entire city into darkness. The Vice President of the United States responds by mobilizing the nearest units, but they are still 2 hours away. The terrorists then target the president's helicopter. As they fly, another helicopter is hit by heavy gunfire. The president's aircraft deploys flares to evade incoming missiles, but eventually, they run out. In a heroic act, a second helicopter sacrifices itself to protect the president by diverting a missile. However, a Stinger missile hits the president's helicopter, causing it to crash into a park. U.S. officials watch in horror as the scene unfolds. Miraculously, Mike and President Asher survive the crash, though they are injured. Sadly, Lynn is not as lucky. With her dying breaths, she urges Mike to protect the president at all costs. Mike and President Asher crawl out of the wreckage and try to contact their security team but fail. Realizing the danger, they escape into the dense forest to avoid their pursuers. At the command center, Vice President Trumbull receives a call from Amir, who is still alive and orchestrating the chaos. Amir reveals his motive: revenge for the drone strike that killed his daughter. He offers to stop the operation if they hand over President Asher, but Vice President Trumbull refuses to negotiate. While on the move, Mike knocks out a man pretending to be a police officer, leaving President Asher confused. Upon inspecting the man's weapons, they realize he is not a real cop. Mike leads President Asher to an MI6 safe house, and they head to a subway station. But their peace is short-lived. Mike uses a smoke bomb to create chaos among their attackers and then throws a grenade, taking out 3 men. He picks up a radio from one of the fallen attackers and speaks to Cameron. In a bold move, Mike forces Cameron to listen as he kills Cameron's brother, sending a clear message of his determination to protect the president. Meanwhile, at the command center, Vice President Trumbull sees a satellite feed showing Mike signaling with his gun in a coded way. Recognizing it as a call for an MI6 agent, Trumbull quickly searches for nearby safe houses to locate them. In the chaos, President Asher, understanding the danger, makes a serious request to Mike. He prefers that Mike end his life rather than let the terrorists capture him for a public execution. Soon after, British officials contact Vice President Trumbull. Together, they plan to recall all first responders. This tactic will identify any remaining people on the streets as enemies, allowing the military to target them. At the MI6 safe house, Mike and President Asher are welcomed by Jacqueline Marshall. She brings them inside safely. Once inside, Jacqueline plays a coded message from Vice President Trumbull, confirming his identity and informing them that an armored escort is coming to extract the president from the city. Jacqueline then reveals the mastermind behind the attacks. President Asher recognizes the name and feels remorse, understanding it is the man whose family he unintentionally harmed. Shortly after, an alert signals the arrival of their team outside. Mike checks the security cameras and immediately senses something is wrong. He zooms in and realizes the team outside is not theirs. He heads to the armory, preparing for the fight. He tells President Asher and Jacqueline to take cover. Mike confronts the intruders, taking down one mercenary and facing a tough challenge with the second. He maneuvers skillfully, eliminating several attackers. Just as he's about to be ambushed, he overpowers his opponent. Mike and President Asher then hurry to an underground car to escape. Jacqueline investigates the mole leaking information to their enemies. U.S. officials track down Amir's hideout, a seemingly abandoned house using a lot of electricity connected to one of his past businesses. Mike and President Asher drive through London, spotting enemies ahead. President Asher speeds up, dodging bullets and exploding cars. Suddenly, a truck crashes into their vehicle, flipping it over. Assailants capture President Asher, but Mike remains resilient. Just in time, Vice President Trumbull's strike team arrives, changing the course of the battle. Mike quickly informs the team about the president's kidnapping, urging them to launch a counterattack. At London's security headquarters, Jacqueline cleverly restores their surveillance system using a special code, surprising and impressing everyone. In a remote warehouse, President Asher is tied up while Cameron ominously announces that the world will witness his death. Unbeknownst to Cameron, Mike and his team are ready outside the building. The chief inspector warns Mike through his walkie-talkie about around 100 armed men, but Mike ignores the warning and charges into battle. He and his team move forward carefully, taking down enemies with precision and determination. An RPG is fired at them, but they continue undeterred. When a sentry turret appears, Mike destroys it with a grenade. They push forward, using an RPG to silence the gunners and disable the building's generator. With the enemies thrown off balance, Mike enters the building. Wearing night vision goggles, Mike plants C4 near the gas supply and takes out several enemies. Even after the generator is restored, he continues his stealthy assault, creating chaos inside the building and achieving a quad kill despite getting injured. Armed with grenades and sheer determination, he keeps eliminating adversaries. As Cameron starts the live broadcast of the president's execution, Mike bursts in, guns blazing. In a fierce showdown, he kills everyone in the room and faces Cameron as his bullets run out. The fight begins, with Mike initially having the upper hand until he is stabbed in the abdomen. Despite the injury, he continues to fight, beating Cameron until Cameron's brother throws a grenade, allowing Cameron to escape. Mike and the president confront more enemies as they try to flee. Surrounded and under heavy fire, Mike reluctantly orders his teammate outside to detonate the C4 explosives. The explosion engulfs the building in flames, killing Cameron and setting the structure on fire. U.S. troops quickly invade and search the building, finding Mike and the president battered but alive in the elevator shaft. They emerge from the wreckage, and President Asher salutes Mike's bravery. Mike hands his colleague a device that could locate Amir. The scene shifts to Jacqueline, who confronts Michigan 5 intelligence chief J.N. after discovering he is Amir's inside man. His fingerprints in the security system are undeniable evidence. Despite his attempts to justify his betrayal by highlighting the nation's vulnerability, Jacqueline shows no mercy and kills him without hesitation. Amir's phone rings, and Vice President Trumbull informs him that his evil plan has failed. Amir boldly says that this is only the beginning. In response, Trumbull tells him to look outside. Before Amir can react, a drone strike destroys his base, wiping out him and his organization. 2 weeks later, London begins to recover. Mike returns to his hometown to spend time with Leah and their newborn daughter, Lynn, named after his fallen comrade. As Mike considers his future, torn between leaving his job, he sees Vice President Trumbull on TV. With newfound resolve, Mike deletes his resignation letter. The scene shifts to Mike, a Secret Service operative, looking through a hole in the wall, surveying a battlefield filled with Secret Service soldiers. Engaging in combat, Mike moves through the soldiers, who coordinate through their walkie-talkies, tracking his movements as he heads toward the extraction point. As Mike makes his way, he encounters soldiers trying to take him down, and one finally hits him. The soldiers stop, revealing that this was a training drill. After the exercise, Mike talks with his old friend Wade Jennings, a former Secret Service operative and owner of the private military company Salient Global. During their conversation, a contractor named Bruno curses at Mike for a past incident. Mike ignores him. After the training session, Mike takes an unknown drug to deal with pain from a concussion he got in an accident. In a meeting with his doctor, he learns that his chronic issues and compressed vertebrae will continue to affect his life, making him question his future in his job. At home, his wife Leah asks about his possible promotion to director of the Secret Service and assures him she'll support him with Vice President Trumbull if needed. At the White House, Mike talks about his potential promotion with the current director of the Secret Service, David Gentry, who confirms that Mike is next in line for the position. Meanwhile, Vice President Trumbull answers tough questions from reporters about U.S. government war policies. The president talks about changing the complacency around Americans going to war and hints at future military action. After a contentious question from a leak in Congress, he warns members not to leak information to the press. Later that day, Wade, Mike, and Mike's wife gather around a table, sharing war stories. They move their conversation outside, reminiscing about their past experiences. Wade questions Mike if he ever imagined they would make it past 30. During their talk, Mike feels a surge of pain and tells Wade he wouldn't take the director's job even if offered, feeling unfit for the role. Instead, he promises to recommend Wade's private military company to his superiors for a contract. The next morning, a news report discusses Russian troop movements while Leah expresses her concern about Mike's insomnia. Mike reassures her and shares a tender moment with their daughter before heading to work. Along the way, heightened security shows that a significant figure, the president, is nearby. During a fishing trip with the president, Mike talks about his concerns regarding trust within Congress. When asked about his hesitation to accept the director of the Secret Service role, Mike remains silent, overwhelmed by another wave of pain. To lighten the mood, the president jokes that Mike should leave because he's scaring the fish away. As Mike returns to the security detail, he takes more medication. Suddenly, what first appear to be bats are revealed to be explosive drones aimed at assassinating the president and his protective detail. Despite the Delta team's efforts, they can't stop the explosions, causing many Secret Service operatives to die. In the chaos, the focus shifts to the person controlling the drones. They intentionally alter the drone's path to avoid hitting Mike. Secret Agent Mav sacrifices himself to protect the president, pushing him into the water before being killed by the explosions. Mike ensures the president's safety by guiding him underwater to lessen the impact of the blasts. After the assassination attempt, both Mike and the president receive urgent medical attention. Despite the efforts of doctors and medical staff, the president remains unresponsive and in a coma. Mike, however, shows signs of consciousness. The vice president rushes to the hospital and is briefed on the situation. With the president incapacitated, the vice president takes the oath as acting president in the hospital. FBI agents find a van near the crime scene with electronic devices and a launcher system, and they give the evidence to lead agent Helen Thompson. Meanwhile, Mike's wife rushes to the hospital and finds him in the ICU. Mike is handcuffed to the bed and interrogated by Agent Thompson, who suspects his involvement in the assassination attempt. The story hints at a mysterious $10 million in an offshore account linked to Mike, adding to the suspense. Agent Thompson presents evidence to Mike. His DNA was found in the van, and a classified map from his Secret Service itinerary was found on the dark web. Despite Mike's claims of being framed, Thompson charges him with attempting to assassinate the president and plotting against his Secret Service team. As Mike is taken from the hospital, the news brands him as the mastermind behind the attack. While being transported in a government vehicle, the press seeks a statement from Mike's wife, who is on her way home. One FBI agent asserts her innocence in the scheme. Suddenly, the convoy is disabled by an external source, leading to a violent ambush that kills the FBI agents. Mike's rescuer frees him and takes him to another vehicle. During the journey, Mike tries to figure out his rescuer's identity. Growing impatient, he breaks a window, grabs a gun, and neutralizes the passenger. He then subdues the driver with his handcuffs, causing the vehicle to crash. Unveiling the driver's face, Mike unveils the driver's face and recognizes him as a Secret Service operative from an earlier incident, reminding him that he had warned him to take training seriously. FBI agents monitoring the incident suspect Mike orchestrated the ambush. It's discovered that the money in Mike's account comes from a bank in Moscow, suggesting ties to the Russians. At Salient Global, Wade talks with an unidentified caller about the evidence planted to incriminate Mike. The caller, using a voice modulator, hints that Mike's exoneration depends on Vice President Trumbull staying in a coma. Meanwhile, Mike, now a fugitive, stops at a gas station to call his wife. Learning about the death threats against his family, he reassures her and tells the FBI, who are listening in, about his innocence and determination to find the real culprits. As Mike speaks, 3 armed men approach and order him to end the call, revealing they recognize him. They try to claim the bounty on his head, but Mike disarms one and scares them off with a warning shot. He then takes their truck. Chased by the police, Mike drives skillfully, eventually dropping his load to slow them down. Despite this, the chase continues, and a helicopter joins in. Determined to escape, Mike crashes the truck, flips it, and disappears into the dense forest, leaving the officers searching in vain. In a tense discussion, the president questions Congress about the reliability of the intel linking Mike to the Russians. Congress admits the evidence isn't solid, leading to a debate on whether retaliation is necessary to avoid appearing weak. Meanwhile, Wade at Salient Global suggests tracking Mike to his potential regrouping spot, leading them to Mike's father's location in the forest. Meeting his father, Clay, in the woods, Mike confronts him for abandoning their family. Clay defends his actions, saying the war took a toll on his life and leaving was for the best. The acting president publicly accuses Mike of working with the Russian government in the assassination attempt. At Salient Global, Wade's team locates Mike's father and sends troops to capture him. Clay refuses to flee, claiming ownership of the mountain. As enemy assailants approach, Clay reveals a secret passageway and tells Mike to stay low and toughen up. Clay takes charge, using explosives to eliminate the enemies, while Mike struggles in hand-to-hand combat. Clay orders Mike to set off a series of bombs, effectively eliminating their attackers. With a nonchalant, "You're welcome," he saves the day. After the fight, Clay tells Mike about the president's accusation of colluding with the Russians. He hacks into a contractor's phone and calls Wade for answers. Wade acknowledges Mike's skills but cryptically justifies his actions as necessary, leaving Mike unsettled. Tensions rise as Mike vows to confront Wade, ending the call abruptly. Wade looks so proud of him. Meanwhile, the FBI arrives at Clay's house and finds soldiers contracted by Salient and a note implicating the private military company. The FBI agent suspects Salient's involvement and suggests that Mike might have been framed to cause a conflict with Russia. Vice President Trumbull begins to show signs of recovery, responding to medical tests. Mike tells his father that he's relieved the president is regaining consciousness but is worried about Wade's relentless efforts to kill him. He explains that he urgently needs to reunite with his wife and daughter, revealing his family to his father for the first time. His father nods in approval, recognizing his son's priorities before they part ways. Meanwhile, Wade has a tense phone conversation with an unidentified individual who is revealed to be Vice President Kirby. Kirby threatens Wade and instructs him to complete the assassination, promising lucrative rewards. Wade sends his men to Mike's home, where they force his wife to go with them. Unexpectedly, Mike's father intervenes, launching a surprise attack on the intruders. He swiftly incapacitates them, earning a surprised look from his daughter-in-law, who questions his sudden appearance. He confirms his identity by sharing details about Mike and expresses regret for his absence in their lives. Meanwhile, David Gentry confronts the recently awakened Vice President Trumbull, feeding him false information about Mike's alleged collaboration with the Russians. Gentry demands immediate contact with Kirby, hinting at rising tensions between the United States and Russia. At Salient's headquarters, Agent Thompson requests permission to land, which Wade grants. Upon arrival, they exchange a few words, but Wade senses their suspicion and swiftly shoots them. He orders his associate to get the cars, and they speed off to complete their mission of eliminating the president. Meanwhile, Mike rushes to the hospital where Vice President Trumbull is located, taking over a police patrol car. He puts the officer in the trunk and wears his uniform, using the radio to create a fake threat outside the ER, diverting attention from the president. Mike escalates the ruse by falsely reporting gunfire, drawing more units away from the scene. As Mike moves forward, he encounters an acquaintance and takes him hostage. Using the elevator, they arrive at a floor where Mike is surrounded by armed individuals. He demands to speak with David and eventually surrenders when his request is granted. Mike insists on seeing the president, expressing concern for his safety due to Wade's relentless pursuit. Recognizing Mike's loyalty, the president releases him from custody and grants him authority over the situation. Mike quickly calls for Marine One to evacuate the president, realizing that Wade's men have compromised the hospital. Liquid nitrogen leaks into patient rooms, hinting at an impending explosion set up by Wade's men, who inform him of their compromised position in the evacuation. Despite the chaos, Kirby is determined to go to war. Vice President Trumbull is transported from the hospital, but encounters a deadly obstacle as Wade's men intercept their vehicle. Wade skillfully eliminates the driver, worsening the situation. Amid the relentless exchange of gunfire, casualties increase on both sides. Mike issues urgent orders to his team to escort the president to safety within the hospital's West Wing. Despite the hail of bullets, Vice President Trumbull and Mike manage to find cover, narrowly escaping harm thanks to the quick action of one of their soldiers. Meanwhile, the salient hacker triggers an explosion in the hospital's East Wing, reducing it to rubble. Wade orchestrates the next phase of his plan, intent on killing the president. Using a map found in an elevator, Mike and Gentry devise a strategy to protect the president. The soldiers fortify their position, preparing for the onslaught of salient forces. They secure the president in an office, guarded by an injured Gentry, as Mike assures him he will return quickly. The president, concerned for Mike's safety, urges him to be careful. As salient forces breach the building, Mike takes charge, coordinating the defense to protect the president at all costs. As the chaos calms, a tense silence falls over the scene, only to be broken by Wade and his soldiers infiltrating. Using his training, Mike engages them in close combat, quickly disarming and defeating them one by one. Despite getting injured, he shows remarkable resilience, exchanging gunfire with the salient operatives and taking them down with each shot. In a desperate move, Mike uses a grenade, but the assault continues as Wade's forces launch a barrage of bullets, devastating the protective detail until a massive explosion threatens to shift the balance. Wade's men surround the office where the president is hiding. Wade orders his hacker to arrange an extraction. When they break down the door, they find that Mike has cleverly hidden the president in an adjacent room, just a wall away. In a quick move, Mike eliminates one of the soldiers with a precise shot to the head as a tactical team storms the building. A fierce gunfight erupts as Wade and his remaining men try to escape. Mike chases them, leading to a frantic rooftop showdown. Amidst the chaos, a chopper arrives, providing cover fire. Mike takes cover but fights back, using a fallen soldier as a shield against Wade's grenade. As Wade heads towards the waiting helicopter, thinking he has escaped, it explodes, leaving him face to face with Mike, who has miraculously survived. They lock eyes in a tense standoff, drawing their weapons for a final duel. They exchange gunfire before the fight turns into a brutal hand-to-hand combat. Mike gains the upper hand, disarming Wade. The fight then becomes a knife duel. With swift precision, Mike overpowers Wade, forcing him to accept defeat and his impending death. In his final moments, Wade expresses a twisted sense of admiration, acknowledging Mike as a worthy opponent in their deadly conflict. The scene then shifts to a world at peace, with all nations reconciled. Mike is cleared of all charges, while Vice President Trumbull confronts the deceitful vice president in his office. Trumbull reveals that FBI agent Thompson had discovered his betrayal before she died. With a hint of sarcasm, the president comments on his former colleague's downfall before Gentry escorts him out, marking the end of his political career. On the eve of his retirement, Mike visits the president one last time, expressing regret for hiding his health issues. Vice President Trumbull scolds him, but Mike explains his fear of losing his role as the president's chief protector. Quoting his father's advice about quitting before hurting loved ones, Mike offers his resignation. The president reflects on the importance of overcoming adversity and praises Mike's resilience, insisting he stay as director. They share a heartfelt embrace, with Mike promising to be honest in the future. The scene shifts to a family gathering at the Bannings' home. Clay asks if he can stay with his son and daughter-in-law, and they joyfully agree. Leah pulls Clay aside, warning him not to break Mike's heart again, and Clay solemnly promises. In the final scene, the Bannings find solace in a unique relaxation chamber, sharing a moment of vulnerability. As they recline in separate pools, a blackout prompts a candid conversation, deepening their connection through their shared struggles. So the moral of the story is, if you ever find yourself saving the president from terrorists, be prepared for an absurd amount of explosions, betrayals, and dramatic hand-to-hand combat. Also, make sure your family is really good at handling surprise visits from estranged relatives with a knack for explosives.